All right, guys, welcome back. We have another cast interview this week while I'm still working on getting caught up on the future episodes. And with having Liwa on last time, I thought the next logical step would be to have Toa Onua on. So here we go. We got TJ True as our guest this week. How you doing, TJ?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to be here. I love working on this project and working with you. So, um, when you put in the call, I answered just like I expect Onua would.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So for these interviews, I'm trying to give the audience an idea of the talent that is behind all of these projects, aside from the writing and aside from just what I do behind the scenes. So I'm interested in showing off the different paths that led the different actors that I have on here to where they are in the voice acting scene. So what got you interested in voice acting?
So, man, probably almost 10 or 15 years ago, I saw a segment on TV on voice actors on one of the variety shows. The thing with Entertainment Tonight. Um, but the segment was on Don LaFontaine. And if you've ever heard a movie trailer, you've heard Don LaFontaine, right?
Yeah.
He is a legend. The voice of God, the inner world guy.
Hmm.
Um, and I watched him get up in the morning. A limo picked him up, took him to the studio, drove him around, and that was his day. And I thought it was so amazing to be able to do that. Right. Other folks, they make money with their voice singing or public speaking, but to be able to voice act, right, and to become different characters, right, or be different things, different people, different creatures, whatever the case may be. I just thought that that was amazing, and figured that it was something that I definitely wanted to get into. It took me a little bit of time to get there. I think I'm at a point in my life now where it's a lot easier for me to do that. The kids are older, can manage themselves. So the time opened up a few years ago for me to actually take the leap into voice acting.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't wait for that day. All my kids are under 3 and I've got one on the
Uh,
way, so it's been hectic.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So so you said 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah,
So how much of that have you actually been into voice acting?
been doing it for about 3 years now.
Okay.
3 years now. So yeah, I decided I was just going to take that leap of faith and move out and do it. Because that's the scariest part, right? Jumping into
Yeah,
something that you really have no idea what you're doing initially. You may have a passion for it, but you don't necessarily know the ins and outs. So I took my time to get acclimated and really understand, what it was about, and then took my foray out there.
yeah. Whenever you leapt right into it, how much research would did you say that would you say that you did before before you actually took that first leap?
Yeah. So it was a couple of months, and I decided to jump in. Um, So it was a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of looking at websites, other voice actors who had been um, in the business for a long time, and the sense that I was getting was to go for it, right? To dive in. Um, I bought. I think my mic was about $50, my first mic, right? I set myself up in my closet and you know, uh, started on freelance platforms, and figured, okay, I'm going to put a little bit of investment in this and see what happens, right? Understanding that it's extremely competitive, and rejection is something that you need to become well acquainted with when it
Definitely.
comes to voice acting, right? So I didn't have any delusions of grandeur for what I was going to do. Didn't know what direction exactly I was going to go into, but I wanted to give this a try. So after taking a couple of months to really delve into the world of voice acting, that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to make a few purchases. I had my limit. I said, I'm not going to spend more than $500, right? So, to ensure that I'm not, doing anything ridiculous. $500 in VO can go like that,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna give this a try and see whether or not, one, if I really liked it, right? Yeah, I thought that it would be something that I would be interested in, but am I really built, right, to do this? Um, and then the second was, okay, am I going to be able to make any money out of it? Right. Because sometimes it can be just a labor of love, right? I do
Right.
it for the passion. And that's one thing. But I wanted to see if I could actually make a business out of this thing. So, going in with that attitude and mentality, I was prepared for it not to work and then not to be disappointed. So my first venture was on Fiverr, right? And I remember the first job that I had. It was a movie recap. Um, some of the things that you see on YouTube,
Yeah.
and I was so terrified because I had heard all the stories about, well, if you get a bad review for your first job on Fiverr, you might as well forget it because the algorithms will
Right.
kill you. Um, and when I finished the job, I got my 5-star review, and it was amazing. Right? It was amazing to somebody actually paid me to do this, right? And that began to fuel me and move me forward. Okay, let me keep working at this, keep trying to hone my craft and learn as much as I can, right, as I go forward.
Right. So obviously I think I speak for everyone whenever I say you have an excellent voice. So that makes me wonder, did you before you got into voice acting, did you have any type of experience using your voice in any way, like any type of vocal performance experience at all?
None, none at all.
None.
People would
Okay.
always say, well, do you sing? I said, no, I'm not going to torture people like that. Um, But no, no, none at all. I was actually, one of the interesting things about um, the voice acting community is, and the folks that I've talked to is I find a lot of introverts, all right?
Yeah.
Folks that where we're not necessarily comfortable speaking outside, but when we get into the booth, it's a whole different thing,
Yeah.
right? Um, so I've always been the shy person, the one to stand in the back of the room.
Yeah.
What I found is that, this gives me such an opportunity to come out of my shell, right? And to become someone different.
Yeah.
And I love it, right? I love, having that control to come out when I need to come out, and then I can, go back when I need to. So it really, I think, has also helped me develop that, that means to be out there a little bit more, right? To be a little bit more engaging, right? Because it's just acting at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely something that has helped me to grow as well.
Yeah. I started out as a singer before I was a voice actor, so the using my voice to entertain people was there was a little bit of carryover there, but it
Mhm.
was definitely, even though I'm used to singing on stage in front of people, like you said, I would probably consider myself an introvert too. I've I've always said I would rather speak or I would rather sing in front of 1,000 people as
Mhm.
opposed to like 15 people. And
Right.
I've done both. And singing in front of larger crowds, it feels less personal. So it
Hmm.
feels more I feel like I can express a little bit more than if it was like a smaller crowd just watching me perform.
Yeah.
Always felt
Yeah.
a little
It,
uncomfortable.
and I think that the fact that you love doing it, right, and
Hmm.
you enjoy it so much helps to tamp down that initial fear, right,
Yeah.
or nervousness or apprehension, right? So I think, it's definitely it's been a blessing for me to be engaged and be a part of this because it's a new side of myself that I didn't know um, I had, right? In an area that I've now discovered and I've been able to flourish and thrive in, and I'm extremely grateful for that.
So what parts of voice acting do you enjoy the most that you didn't expect to even encounter before you started?
I would have to say it's the character work that I do enjoy. If I had to say what I wanted to do initially, it would have probably been commercial work, right? But the character work, the ability to again become that other individual, right? And to play that out, and that imagination piece, right? To come up with how am I going to voice this particular character? And I think for me, those times where I have to do, things like Bionicle, right? Where it's fantasy oriented, right? Where you really get a chance to stretch yourself. Of
Yeah.
course, in drama, you can stretch yourself as well, right? But when it comes to that science fiction or fantasy genre, you really get an opportunity to experiment, right? When it comes to the character that you're going to voice, and how you want to portray that character to the world. So that for me, I think is one of my favorite parts about voice acting is that aspect of being able to create, right? You're working with the individual that has created the character, but now I have to then take it and what they're thinking about that character, put my own spin on it, right? And it's that melding together, right? The two creators that I find really fascinating to that ebb and flow, that give and take on, well, let me give this spin on it and then tell me how you feel about that. And in working with the content creator on achieving whatever their ultimate vision is.
Yeah. Yeah. So with character work being your favorite, what types of voiceover work do you typically do? Where does most of your work come from? Is it character work?
It's commercial.
Yeah.
It's commercial, yeah. And what I've found as well is that this voice acting for me, because I've gotten, it's hasn't been a relatively long period of time, but I've gotten so much out of it. Um, I really do enjoy giving back as well. So I have found that I've gotten a lot of commercial work related to nonprofits.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm really trying to gear myself to be the voice, right, for nonprofits. I think there's so many incredible causes out there that need a voice, right? Need someone to speak for them. Um, yeah, I've had quite a few projects in that area, right? When it comes to nonprofits, I've done work for Heifer International, for Jeskio, which is a Haitian relief group. I just did something for, or I'm working on something for a DC mentoring program. So I did work for the National Zakat Foundation in Canada, which deals with alms giving, right, during Ramadan. Um, and I don't know if it's because the way that I'm able to voice, if there's a little bit of authority, a little bit of warmth in it as well, caring and comfort. So, but that's definitely something that, as much as I enjoy the character work, that's another element that I really want to pick up on as well to kind of give back, right? I've got this great voice. So folks tell me, right? I want to be able to use it, right, in a variety of ways, right? For me, there's nothing better than being able to um, meet someone's needs, right? And when you hear someone say, man, that voice, that's exactly the voice that I had in my head, right? There's no better compliment to me, right? To meet someone's expectations or exceed someone's expectations, and really bring to life the character or the message that they're trying to put forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So, um, whenever I first reach out to you, like however long ago it was, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I mentioned that I had a project for relating to Bionicle, you mentioned that you were familiar with it. So, how familiar were you with Bionicle before we started working together?
Beyond really just seeing it in the store, right next to the other Lego sets, it wasn't much. I understood that there was some backstory around it, but it wasn't something that I had a great deal of familiarity with, right? I thought that, man, these things look really cool. But it really is, if I'm what year did it come out? The
It
first.
the first Bionicle came from 2001 to 2010.
Yeah. So, I was on the older end of the spectrum, right?
Right.
I'm almost AARP age. So it was it wasn't anything that at the time that there was a huge amount of interest in, right?
Right.
So when you brought the project to me, I actually had to go back and say, well, let me take a look at this. I've heard of this before, but I didn't really have the details around
Right.
some of the stories. And then I went out and I mean, the amazing amount of lore associated with it, right?
Yep.
Was incredible. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is something that I definitely want to be involved in.
Yeah, that's one thing that I like asking all of the actors about because the answer is just like a spectrum.
Yeah,
We've got people that I reach out to that have never heard of it before I talk to them, and then people that were like me that were obsessed with it as a kid,
right.
which I mean it's hard to be more obsessed with it than I was. But uh but
That
there are a
that's
few.
real dedication. That's
Yeah.
real dedication.
Yeah. So you mentioned before that that you have kids and that they're older. Has has seeing you get into this, has that inspired them at all? Or have they talked about doing anything like voice acting or anything along those lines?
My kids make a lot of fun of me because, I walk around the house and I'm always mumbling to myself, right? Either it's tongue twisters, right, to get prepped for a job I'm going to do, or it's saying the lines. And I've done some pretty interesting things, right? So they love, making fun of me. But I think it's all in understanding that, dad is trying to live his dream, right?
Yeah.
So I certainly think that they're proud, but they love to rib me about some of the things that I do, and I've talked to them about it, and it certainly is an inspiration, right? For them to see me doing this. I mean, my wife also recently started her own business, so
All right.
yeah, she makes Jamaican jerk marinade. Um, so for them to see the both of us um, at this stage in our lives doing something that we love, I think is a huge inspiration, right? And they will often talk about, well, when I get older, I think I want to do, XYZ, right? So to be able to lay that foundation for them, I think is great.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of walking around the house doing voices here too.
Yeah.
So it's always my wife that points out who I sound like whenever I do a voice. I said something the other day, and as soon as I said it, she goes, "That was Damick." I was like, "Yeah, I guess it was." I uh I actually brought my son in the sound booth a while back. He's actually in book 2 of Bionicle Revised.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, he's the Borok. Yeah,
That's
my
great. It's
yeah.
great.
Some of the Borok sounds. He does most of the death sounds, but yeah, he was in the sound booth. And yeah, one day he was throwing a 2-year-old tantrum and he shrieked real loud and I was like, I could use that.
That's it. That's it. Right.
So I brought him in the sound booth and I said, all right, every time you scream, you get a marshmallow. And
That's a great payment, right? That's
yeah,
that's like GVAA rates, right? A marshmallow.
yeah. So now that you've been in it for a couple years now, we have a lot of listeners that have reached out to me and have been talking about how they've been interested in voice acting, and I've even had a few people send me demos. So what advice could you offer the people that are just thinking about starting or are just now starting?
Um, Learn as much as you can, right? Take the time to understand what the craft is truly about, and I'm still on that journey. Um, and realize that it is going to take some time. Right. There have been many folks that I've been engaged with over my time in doing this that become extremely frustrated because I'm not getting any work. It's not easy starting. right? Post pandemic, the amount of voice actors exploded, right?
Yeah.
So, um, patience is truly the key. Be willing to put in the work, be willing to do the auditions, right? Because that's the way that you're going to get the work. These freelance sites are great. But if you don't have a good foothold in them already, it can be difficult. Um, there will be a lot of people that will tell you, well, you need to spend X, Y, and Z on training and have a $3,000 to $5,000 demo done. Um, I don't subscribe to that at this point. Now, while I'm not, raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? I do okay, and it's because I was willing to really buckle down and not only start to learn the craft and practice, but learn, the technology as well, right? So that would be something that I would really put out to folks is that if this is really what you want to do, don't give up, don't get discouraged. Understand that it's going to take some time to get to where you need to be, right? All of our voices are unique, right? Don't
Yeah.
believe that just because, in the first 3 months, nobody has hired you. Well, maybe they don't want my voice. That's not true, right? You look at Gilbert Godfrey, right? I
Yeah.
mean, someone who made a living, right, based on the way that he sounded. Um, but just be diligent and find groups that will support you, that are positive, right? Where you can really get the support that you need as you begin your journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to my brother a couple months back, and he kind of mentioned dipping his toes into voice acting. And he said, I want to give it a try, but I don't have a voice like you have, and it probably won't go anywhere. And I told him, I was like, well, the fact that you don't have a voice like I have is an advantage, because your voice is what somebody is looking for.
Hmm. Exactly.
And everybody's got their different specialty, and he's done a couple voices in my book. He's the voice of Tamaru,
Mhm.
but yeah, I've mentioned that before. I was like, look at me. I mean, I don't have my voice isn't that unique or iconic, and but it works. It works for what I get hired to do. It works for what I want to do. And I can always improve acting skills and different techniques that will give me an advantage. But yeah, whenever it comes to just the style of voice you have, it's what somebody's looking for.
Right, exactly. And I will tell you, Isaac, I mean, I think you're a fabulous storyteller, right? In
Thanks.
the way that you bring it forward. And that's what I think a lot of new voice actors need to understand. I think there was a point in time where, there were people years and years ago that were looking for the voice of God, right? That deep
Hmm.
baritone, right? That voice of authority. But that's not what uh uh companies are looking for. It's not what, again, content creators are looking for. It's that variety, right? It's being able to fit that bill for the unique character that they're looking for. So, regardless of what you may think of your voice, right? And this is another piece of advice that I give to anyone, right? Your uniqueness is key, right? It makes you who you are. So lean into that, right? If there's a little quirk, lean into that quirk, right? It's what's going to make you stand out, right? Amongst the other folks who kind of sound similar, right? And
Yeah.
don't be afraid to be you behind the microphone, right?
Yeah.
Just relax and let it go.
Yeah. It's like the guy that I hired for Liwa, he mentioned how he was concerned about how niche having a thick Scottish accent was. And I told him, I was like, dude, that's why I hired you.
Right, right. And he reached out to me the other day, right,
Yeah.
via Fiverr, and I thought it was great. We don't often have a chance to connect, right, because
Hmm.
we're not in a studio together,
Yeah.
right? It's all of us, in our separate booths doing our work. So it was great to hear from him,
Yeah.
and reach out and be connected, right,
Yeah.
in that way.
Yeah. Now that we just finished beating each other up in a burning
Right,
forest, it's
exactly.
good to
We
meet you.
just fighting. Yeah, how you doing? Right, right.
Yeah. So another thing that I get asked a lot, that I'm interested in hearing your take on is, in the modern world that we live in with voice acting and with AI being new competition. I've heard some people that's their deterrent for getting started, and I've heard other voice actors talk about that's one thing that they have to navigate around. What are your thoughts on being an authentic voice, having to navigate around the rise of AI?
Yeah. So, I see AI, it's just another competitor, right? Um, and for me, what it does is it makes me have to be better, right, at what I do, right? It makes me want to work harder because it's another thing out there, right, that I have to fight against. I don't, yes, AI is getting better and better. I'm of the mindset, I don't think it'll ever really replace the human voice, right? In fact, I've seen there are folks that from an e-learning perspective, um, and other content, even some of the YouTube related things that I do, people are coming back to real voices because the AI just isn't working for them, right? It's not giving them what they need. I actually had a job recently where someone said, "Yeah, we've got the AI voice. It's really not fitting the bill for us, but we want you to sound like it." All right. So, even in that, it was still, we want that human
Yeah,
touch, you know? So for anyone again that wants to get into this, don't be afraid of AI, right? It should be a motivator to, okay, I'm going to do better, right? I'm going to continue to hone my craft to make myself more recognizable and stand out in the industry.
yeah. I I agree. I definitely agree with that, especially whenever you look at all of the job postings and you see just how many
Yep.
say we want a real voice, we don't want AI. Because the way I see it, a lot of us freelancers that offer our services that are competing with AI, we kind of have a natural aversion to AI. The buyers feel the same way.
Right.
There's just as many buyers that are averse to the AI as we are. So I agree. I don't think it's going anywhere, but I also see it as little more than just a competitor. Maybe it's taken over in some niches,
Hmm.
but there's always going to be work for real voices because there's
Right.
always going to be some kind of client that insists on using real voices.
Right. Because they want that connection, right?
Right.
So whether you're doing the character work or whether it's the commercial, you still want that connection, right? I've actually moved to when I first started, I thought that perfection was the key, right? I thought that, when I go in and edit my piece of work, okay, I'm going to remove all of these breath sounds, right? So this is the perfect audio. And then you begin to realize that that's not what people want, right? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think I probably lost out on work because maybe it sounded like AI. It was too good, right?
Yeah.
So I've actually gone to leaving in more of my breath sounds when it
Yeah.
comes to doing my audio, right? Or not necessarily clipping this piece of audio where it wasn't, or keeping in a piece of audio that wasn't quite pronounced the right way, but it's real, right?
Yeah.
And that's what people want, right? Conversational is a big thing when it comes to, like, from a commercial perspective, right? They want us to be able to connect with their customer without becoming the focus of the content necessarily, right? So if I'm
Yeah.
doing something on a product, they want to connect with that product, but it's through my voice. So my voice shouldn't be an impediment to what's going on, right? It should add to the focus on their particular product.
Yeah. Especially with nonprofits. I think if a
Yeah,
nonprofit
right.
used an AI voice, that'd be a red flag. But
Right. Exactly. Exactly. You want that emotional connection when it comes to it. So, and you can only get that when it comes, you can only get that with a human voice.
yeah, absolutely. So, all right, before we wrap this up, I have one last question. Um, so as you said throughout the interview that you're doing all right, you're getting work. Do you have any projects outside of Bionicle Revise that you're proud of that you want to direct the listeners to?
Yeah, I certainly would. And I appreciate the shout out that you gave me on this project as well. I did a documentary on bass reeves. It's called In Search of Bass Reeves, and it can be found streaming on Amazon Prime. And it was, I'm still in shock, right? That
Yeah.
you can go to Amazon and type up my name. I've done a few audiobooks,
Yeah.
which is really not my thing. I'm not a big audiobook dude. But having the opportunity to be involved in this documentary was absolutely amazing, right?
Yeah.
The director was just awesome, and the whole team that produced the project was great. And that's the biggest highlight of my career, was being
Yeah.
involved in that project.
Yeah. I went to go visit my parents. They live next state over, and I went into my mom's bedroom, and my brother was in there, and I was like, guys, I gotta show you something. Open up Amazon. And I typed it in and I watched the trailer and they were like, that's Onua. It's like, yeah, yeah. I I love keeping an eye out on the work of the different voice talent that I have, and watching you guys grow over time has been pretty neat.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. And it is a wonderful thing, right? To be involved in this project. And like I said, we don't really, we haven't connected physically, right?
Yeah,
But to be involved in something that I have that I you have taken so much time, right? And effort and heart and love, right? That you've put into this. And you can tell in the script. I remember when you talked about it, right? And I read the script. I was like, this guy loves this thing, all right?
yeah,
And that when you know somebody really loves their project, for me, it makes me want to give even more, right? I can't tell you how many times I've gone back and no, Anua doesn't sound like that. I need to do it again, right? I need to
yeah,
make sure that I'm really capturing the essence of this character, because you can read it in the writing.
yeah,
Right. And I tell folks all the time, right, that it is amazing to see the level of effort that has been put into this project, right? And the creativity, and the genius, right? That has gone along with what you've created, right? And I'm appreciative that you selected me to be a part of this,
yeah,
because it's like I say, it's fabulous. My son has listened to it, and he loves it. I point as many people in a direction of Bionicle Revised, right, when I can, because I think, I mean, it's great artwork, right?
yeah,
And I think it's truly a representation of, again, not only the writing, but the talent that's involved in the project as well.
yeah. Thanks. It's definitely appreciated. It's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears have gone into this over the
Yeah.
years.
Can certainly tell.
But yeah, well, I think that's all we got for this week. So I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight into the voiceover world. I enjoyed getting to know you better. I'm sure the audience are loving this. So for everybody listening, we will see you next time. Hopefully next week we'll have another interview out. Still don't have a release date on chapter 13 and onward, but progress is going well and the release date should be coming soon. So I will see you guys next time.
All right. See you. Thank you. Appreciate it.